Good morning, breakfast clubbers. Good morning. This is the first meeting of the 51st year.
Sit up.
It's been 50 years as of 2018. Now we've started 2019, so it's the 51st year we're beginning. It's a long time. So the next half century goes on. In order to be special, I guess we should sing.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be too much in the microphone during this. You don't want to hear that. Well, how about starting with the first one? Hail, hail, the gang's all here. Morning breakfast clubbers, morning breakfast clubbers. Chow, chow, we all want chow. That is what we're here for now. Yay! Okay, we're going to have, this has been probably 2018 was probably the busiest year I've had in a long time with so many disjointed things going on. I'm glad it's over, but I've still got the aftermath to deal with. Had essentially 3 clients die, friends that died in 2018, one in May, one in July, and one just this last Saturday night late. So I'm helping with a lot of the work to do with their businesses in the state and so forth. So that's a good hobby to have, right? Not exactly much fun, but it's been a busy week. As the one guy's business, the guy that just died, his he didn't open his business up on Sunday like he usually did. So I've had to deliver ice and do some other things for him this week. And his son is in town, so we're going to be trying to figure out what to do with everything. Lots of things on the plate. We're going to have 2 speakers today, and Russ, everybody knows Russ, right?
Yeah, Russ, all right.
Give me just a minute, I'll get the video up here. We're going to show a video to start with, and let's see what we can get done here. There we go. I'll actually sit over here so I can see what I'm doing. And put my glasses on. Okay, that's right. So if you could read along up here, we'll look at Russ's bio real quick. He's a graduate of the University of Miami with a BBA degree, commissioned second lieutenant in the United States Air Force, graduated at the Flying School with Certificate of Aeronautical Rating Tactical Fighters, single engine jet, coveted Silver Wings of the Air Force, Vietnam era veteran, also participated in Cuban Missile Crisis and Bay of Pigs. So I guess we can blame that on Russ, right? Left the service with the rank of captain. Started flying with Pan Am out of Miami and in Germany. Flew B-727s all over Europe. It's been all over the globe. While in the Air Force, became interested in politics, part of the draft Goldwater movement. 62 started Pilots for Goldwater. After leaving the service, helped start the Republican Party in Florida via Dade County. We know all about Dade County. Attended the Republican National Convention in San Francisco when Barry Goldwater was nominated. Goldwater lost. I think we know that. Continued political activities, and now comes to a period of time over 50 years, too numerous to list, many political activities. Supported Goldwater, Reagan, and Buchanan. Arizona State Chairman for Patrick Buchanan, and believes in the principles of Dr. Ron Paul. He's a licensed realtor, loves football, and member of the NRA, avid snow skier, loves to read and study. So when he worked for Pan Am, they sold out to United, and he's flown 2 of the planes that went into the World Trade Center, supposedly were the planes that were flown into the World Trade Center. They're in his logbook. So let's welcome Russ. You want me to start the video now?
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Everybody here? Yep. Everybody here? They're all testing. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, man.
Okay, good. Maybe you don't want to hear it. I don't know.
do, Mark?
Okay, well, welcome, breakfast clubbers, to the
51st.
51st. Okay, I should listen better than that. Welcome, deplorables and irredeemables, and to the 51st meeting. And we're going to talk about one of the two seminal events in the 21st century today. It's going to be, of course, the attack. One of them is the attack on the World Trade Center in New York and the Pentagon. And there's another thing we can label this today. Now we have non-essentials. Any non-essentials in here today? Let me ask this. I used to, for many years, I used to say, the world and the country is going absolutely insane. Well, I don't say that anymore because we're way, way, way past it. Believe me, and here's the hooker. When we reach a certain point, a tipping point, if we haven't reached it already, when the wackos become the majority, they're the new normal, and we're the abnormals. Now think about that. This is really serious. This is something because, you go to the 2016 election, Hillary, as bad as she was, won the popular vote. Now there's a reason for that, like 3 million votes. If you take away Los Angeles County and New York, she loses popular vote. And the whole thing is, of course, based on the electoral system because we're a constitutional republic and not a democracy. That's one of the things that really upset me dearly is that so many people keep calling us a democracy. Well, they're not. There's a big difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic. And another thing that really ticks me off is that the people keep calling the Democrat Party the Democratic Party. There's nothing democratic about the Democrat Party, folks. It's, the word Democrat is a noun and democratic is an adjective. So why would you use an adjective when you need to use a noun? So that's just very bad English and stupidity as far as I'm concerned. We're going to be talking a lot today about 9/11, of course. I'm going to be talking about, you can divide 9/11 into 4 basic parts as far as I'm concerned. The attack and the hijacking of the aircraft, the World Trade Center, the strike against our Pentagon, and a crash site at Shanksville. And of course, who wins, who gains at 9/11? Who gains in that? That's really a tremendous point which has not been analyzed enough. Remember the old TV program, Sergeant Friday, and he always said, man, just the facts. And it's, what's the motive? What's the motive of anything? And FDR said nothing happens in politics unless, without a reason. Everything had major significance. For example, the Japanese bombing of Pearl Harbor was an event which was kind of a false flag operation. How many people here know the false flag operation is? Does anybody here not understand what a false flag is? Does anybody here want to explain real quick what a false flag is? Okay, I'll do it.
Do it.
A false flag operation comes from the old pirate days on the Spanish Main. And the pirates used to have a flag on their pirate ship from Portugal or Spain or Great Britain. And of course, once they saw another potential victim, they would lower the flag of opportunity and raise the Jolly Roger skull and crossbones. So that's how the main false flag operation came into existence. And 9/11, so what you're doing is today a modern day false flag operation is an operation where a country will do something dastardly to itself and make it look like some other country did it for whatever devious reason that they feel they had to do this. Operation Ironwood was a clear example of that. Back in Fidel Castro just came to power and Yeah, but Fidel Castro, aligned with Chairman Bush's staff, the alignment limits who decided that he would shoot down some American airliners and blame it on Castro, and we'd go to war. Castro, they came up.
Flying in the building.
Yeah. So, anyway, false flag operations are as old as humanity almost. We have some real humdingers. For example, I mentioned Pearl Harbor and the attack on the USS Liberty in 1963, the eastern end of the Mediterranean, and the sinking of the battleship Maine and Havana Harbor. And the list goes on and on. Well, 9/11 is no exception. 9/11 was a false flag operation designed to accomplish some very strong political things. Now, the deep state is been with us a long time. It didn't start with Barack Obama. It's been with us a long time, folks. And if you don't believe that, I passed out some book here called The Death of a Nation by John Stormer. He's the guy that wrote None Dare Call It Treason. And of course, the prelude to that was that treason prospered for whatever reason. None dare call it treason. And so he wrote this book, The Death of a Nation, after that. And we used the book, if you go back to we mentioned in my bio that I was in the Goldwater movement. And John Stormer wrote his book, None Dare Call It Treason, and he sold about 8 million copies of those books. It's one of the biggest selling books of all times. And of course, you can hear it. So here's your chance to read about what's been going on in this country for a long, long time. And I hope you take advantage of that. There's other books that are great, but None Dare Call It Conspiracy. And it's all about what has been going on, is how our government has been lying to us through their teeth. And so whenever you talk about things like, 9/11 and conspiracies, they say, oh, we missed a conspiracy now. So I have a statement here, just for the record. I would like to read, I don't want to read too much because, but anyways, the politicians are, so I want to get this out of the way just for the record. Let's start with the word conspiracy. Random House College Dictionary has 5 concurring definitions for this word. Number 3 is a combination of persons for secret, unlawful, or evil purpose. Number 4 is law, the agreement by 2 or more persons to commit a crime, fraud, or other unlawful acts. With this definition in mind, we must conclude that any discussion about the events of September 11, 2001 are wholly about a conspiracy. People who are labeled conspiracy theorists are those who consider information that is not contained within or is in contrast to the official explanation given to us by the United States government. And the number of instances we find in 9/11 that are either in conflict with or unresolved by an official explanation are many and substantial. From among these, I will isolate just 1 or 2 of them of the items I've already mentioned. The hijacking of the airplanes and possibly the Flight 93, how it was hijacked and really didn't crash at Shanksville. 1, the most glaring evidence. Now, the other speaker doesn't have today is Michael Shoen. Where are you, Mike? There he is. He's going to be talking. I'm going to be talking about the airplane hijacking, and Michael's going to talk about what happened at the World Trade Center, the collapse of the buildings. And so, the part of the 9/11, I look at 9/11 as a kind of like a great big jigsaw puzzle. Actually, 3 or 4 jigsaw puzzles. The one jigsaw puzzle being the hijacking of the airplane, which really hasn't been discussed very much at all because of the technical aspects that most people don't understand about aviation. So I'm going to try today, before the day is over with, to show you that the government story on 9/11 with particular emphasis on the aviation and why the hijacking is a total fraud. And it couldn't possibly happen the way the government says it did. And of course, the second jigsaw puzzle is not the World Trade Center, which Michael's going to talk about. And the third one is the strike, the crash site at Shanksville. The last one is who benefits. Very few people have talked about who benefits. So now we don't have all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle because the government has destroyed lots of evidence, which is illegal. They didn't waste any time in destroying the evidence on 9/11/01. Within minutes and hours, they started cleaning up the hauling away the trash at the World Trade Center, which Michael can talk about, and cleaning up the mess at the Pentagon and Shanksville and stuff like that. And so, which is illegal and immoral and it's not family, so to speak. And to finish this, there's absolutely nothing that supports the official explanation given by our government about the strike against our Pentagon. In fact, there are many clear points of evidence in direct conflict. The Pentagon is ours. It is not solely the property of our government or our military. We therefore have a right and a responsibility to know what really happened there. No jetliner hit our Pentagon. The first video footage of the impact site shows a round hole at ground level that is 16 feet in diameter. The roof caved in only a half hour later, after a subsequent explosion that was recorded at the time and can still be found in a web search. Video clearly shows that there is no damage to the windows beside the 16-foot wide hole where the 125 feet of airplane wingspan would have impacted the glass. If there had been an airplane, likewise, with the 4-story high tail section, you do your homework, you Google plane crashes, and view the Pentagon impact site, you will find no convincing evidence that a passenger plane crashed into our Pentagon, the world's most secure building. The damage to our Pentagon is consistent with a missile impact with a military-type warhead. As the preceding case, the first reporters on the scene with video backup state and show there is no evidence a passenger plane had crashed anywhere near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, the crash site. There was no passenger plane wreckage. Our government told us that flight 93 speed was such that it penetrated into the ground to a depth that rendered irretrievable to recover. Totally insane and stupid lie. This does not make any sense at all. It is not possible that the most section of a 150-foot-long hollow aluminum tube with a 125-foot wingspan penetrated so deeply that coal excavators that dig hundreds of feet deep of coal could not find any evidence of an 80-ton airplane. The National Transportation Safety Board has been to the bottom of the oceans, swamps, remote jungles, and mountains ranges to retrieve evidence of passenger plane crashes, for which mass murder was not even suspected. Passenger plane crashes always give horrific evidence that is always reconstructed to reveal the crash that is the cause of the crash, the probable cause, they call it, with the investigation. With the only exceptions in our history being the single airplane involved in the horror attacks of September 11, 2001. Can you imagine? Every single plane crash is thoroughly investigated. For example, TWA 800, the 747 took out of JFK and blew up just south of Long Island, New York. And to make a long story short, the NTSB, its investigation, went down and recovered all of the airplane, put it back together like a big jigsaw puzzle to determine its probable cause. And yet, there was no indication at that time that it could have been or might have been a criminal operation, which afterwards there was indication that it was a criminal operation. But I'm not going to go into that because we got got to talk about this 9/11. There is a staggering amount of variety of evidence about these 9/11 events that do not just lead to questions about the official explanation, but totally destroy it. I have only brought forward items for which there is no reasonable or intelligent dispute. Please notice I have left out entirely what we most often think of when we call 9/11. Despite what we saw on TV, the vast preponderance of evidence from personal testimony, analysis by physicists and professionals, pilots, and in aeronautical engineering fields, and documented forward acknowledgement of 9/11 by many individuals, we have been tricked by the real conspiracy theory. A real conspiracy, let me emphasize, the government's story is the real conspiracy. To compound that, we are called conspiracy theorists for noticing and mentioning clear and undeniable evidence that is in plain sight. We, the people, are tasked with uncovering the truth, and investigation is necessary by a special prosecutor because there's no statute of limitations on murder. My people perish for lack of the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So that's my opening statement regarding the constant barrage that the government uses and the criminals use to, yes.
Any evidence of the missile? Did they find any missile parts?
Now, when we get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. We're having a Q&A session after. If you have a big question, we'll, this is going to be kind of a fun session today because we're going to participate in this talk today because we're going to show a video, a couple here, and it's going to be about an ABC TV Barbara Walters event which took place. It's a 9-minute long video, and I'm going to ask you to say, let's pretend. Let's pretend. We're going to show the video, and then I'm just going to say you're going to act like you're at home. And then I'm going to give you a crash course in high altitude, high speed flight, air traffic control, radar, and then we're going to watch the video again, and you can see how the government absolutely lies and the mainstream media lies through their teeth. And this has been going on a long time. I'll give you an example before we start moving. I came across not too long ago in April of 2016. Here's a Time magazine cover. April 28th, right there. April 28, 2016. And the feature cover story was what every American man, woman, and child would need to pay to erase the national debt. Now, here they got the figure of $13.9 trillion. In April of 2016. And I saw it and I said, you know, that doesn't sound right. So I got a hold, I checked what the national debt was on that date. And the real debt on that date was $19.4 trillion. They only listed by $5 trillion, folks. $5 trillion. Just a mistake. So this was to make, of course, Barack Obama look good. And we have, you know, instance after instance. I mean, I could, and all of you could put forth 1,000 instances of what the government is doing and lying to us, and the politicians are lying to us. And so it's just self-evident in plain sight if people want to understand and look at it. Now, as a review, how many people remember what they were doing on 9/11?
Yeah, I remember exactly.
Okay. And just a quick review, because it is kind of, you know, it's been going on 20 years, and it is kind of getting a little foggy. And just for review, there were 4 airplanes involved. 4 airplanes were hijacked. The first airplane that was hijacked was American Flight 11, the 767-200, had 92 souls on board, the passengers and crew, and it was scheduled to go from Boston to Los Angeles. Departed at 8 o'clock in the morning on 9/11/01, and it crashed at 8:45 in the North Tower. The second airplane involved was American Airlines, United Airplane Flight 175, a Boeing 767-200, and it was going from Boston to LAX also. And it left a little after 8 and crashed at 9:03 into the South Tower. 11 crashed into the North Tower, and of course, 175 crashed into the South Tower. Now, because there was no, they said they didn't recover the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder, which is a black box, so to speak. Actually, the black boxes are really colored orange, but they still call it a black box. Anyway, they said that they couldn't recover the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder on either of those two airplanes, which was a lie. They did recover, but nobody wanted to, somehow they disappeared. The third airplane was American Flight 77, Boeing 757-200. It left Dulles to LAX, and that left at 8:10 a.m. There's a little bit of a delay, and had 64 souls on board, and it ended up crashing into Canada, allegedly. And the last airplane was United's Flight 93, with 37 passengers. It went from Newark, New Jersey, was scheduled to depart from Newark to San Francisco, and then left Newark at 8:40. It was scheduled to depart around 8 o'clock, but the morning rush in Newark is you always end up with a lot of taxi time on the railroad, on the taxi roads. And it allegedly crashed at Shanksville about 10 o'clock. Now, because there's no flight data recorder, I'm not going to talk too much about 111 and 175. I'm going to specifically arrow in on Flight 77. And then we can talk a little bit about Flight 93, alleged crash at Shanksville. So now it's interesting to note that the passenger load factor on all of these flights normally is around in the mid-90 percentiles, which means the flights are normally full. We have a load factor which comes in around 95–96%. The flights are full. Maybe there's one or two seats left over, but the normal load factor is in the high 90s. It's interesting to note that all the load factors on 9/11/01 were around 30-something%. Now, here's your first test. See what kind of a good detective you are. Why do you think the load factors were so low that day? Anybody?
The day before Labor Day.
No. The bad guys knew there were going to be lawsuits called hush money. They ended up giving out hush money at this point, for these accidents, over $1 million each. So they wanted to keep the hush money. You know what hush money is? I think we don't understand what hush money is. Okay. So they kept the load factors pretty low. Now, were the airlines involved in this? I'm not going to say because I was with one of the airlines. So you use your own noggin to figure it out. Now, it's true. I flew pilot command on both the actual two United aircraft that were November 591 UA, that's the tail number, the 757 number, the 612 UA was the 757. Both of those tail numbers are in my logbook multiple times. So I flew, it's not something where I know somebody who flew the airplanes. I flew those actual airplanes, which would say you were in the operation 9/11. Okay, so what we're going to do next, we're going to have fun with this. I want you to watch this video. If you can see this video, kind of, for 9 minutes, kind of move up. So you can watch this. Now, I want you to listen to this, and then after we're playing it, we're going to stop the video, and we're going to talk about what you just saw. And I want you to notice just about everything you can, the body English, you know, and then I'm going to give you a crash course in transponders, radar, and things like that. And then we're going to watch it again. And then you will see for yourself how everything is looked like a big line today. So then I think one of the things which I want to emphasize is that I was involved in writing this book. It's one of the first books that came out called People Questions 9/11, an analysis of the September attack of 9/11 is September 11th attack. Now, after I have an extra magazine here you can pass around. I still think it's one of the best magazines produced. On the story of what really happened in 9/11. So, if you're ready, we're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to participate. Let's try to raise your hand, and then I'll recognize you, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And then we're going to show it again after you get your flash card, and then you'll see how they have caught us. In the meantime, just pretend like you're sitting at home and you're watching us, and just see how you react. Here.
And now, from Times Square in New York, Barbara Walters.
Good evening, and welcome to 2020. Tonight, the tragedy of September 11th, told as you have never heard it before. For the first time, overcoming their emotional trauma, 2 of the air traffic controllers on duty that day are able to talk about the tension in the tower and their desperation as they watched the disaster unfold, helpless to stop it. What actually happened? Chief Investigative Correspondent Brian Russ with the final terrible minutes of American Flight 77.
It's a very normal day. I seem to recall it was a beautiful day in this Washington, D.C. area. Crystal clear, very nice temperature.
It has taken 6 weeks, but air traffic controller Danielle O'Brien is now ready to talk about her September 11th.
And that particular day, I was assigned to the radar room.
Nation's 2-0.
A day when her cool, calm demeanor, handling aircraft at Dulles Airport outside Washington, would be put fully to the test.
These went from planes to people. They were blips, and now they were human lives.
At 8:25 a.m., she handled the routine on-time departure of American Flight 77 with 64 people on board, a Boeing 757 like this one. 1 hour and 12 minutes later, the plane would crash into the Pentagon.
It was just a normal flight that came through the airspace.
With what she recalls as a normal radio transmission.
American 77 Dulles approach, climb and maintain 17,000. And then I asked American 77 to contact the next controller. American 77, contact Washington Center, 120.65. Good luck.
Good luck. Do you have any idea now why you might have said good luck?
I have no idea whatsoever. It's chilling. It's chilling. I usually say good day as I ask an aircraft to switch to another frequency or have a nice flight, but never good luck.
20 minutes later, the hijacked airplanes began their deadly coordinated missions. and air traffic controllers from Boston to New York to Washington were the first to realize what was going on.
My cell phone went off, and it was an associate of mine from Boston who asked, hey, John, are you watching this on TV? And I said, yeah, I am. And he said, that's American 11.
John Carr is the president of the National Air Traffic Controllers Association.
I almost dropped my coffee. I said, oh my God, what are you talking about? And he said, that's American 11 that made that hole in the World Trade Center. And I said, you're kidding me. And he said, no, and there's another one that just turned south towards New York. We lost him too. And so basically I was watching in horror, expecting to see what we all eventually saw.
At the Dulles Tower, Danielle O'Brien also saw the TV pictures from New York and headed back to her post.
Traffic total clock.
Now to help other planes quickly land.
Speedbird 117, landing 26.
We started moving the planes in as quickly as we could. Then I noticed the aircraft. It was an unidentified plane to the southwest of Dulles, moving at a very high rate of speed. I had literally a blip and nothing more. I slid over to the controller on my left, Tom Howell, and I asked him, do you see an unidentified plane there southwest of Dulles? And his response was, yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Look how fast he is.
And then I said, oh my God, it looks like he's headed to the White House. I started yelling, John, we got a target headed right for the White House.
A representation of the FAA radar scope based on information obtained by 2020 shows the plane headed straight for what is known as P-56, Prohibited Airspace 56, which covers the White House and the Capitol, at a speed of about 500 miles an hour, with no radio contact whatsoever.
Was he on a normal flight approach of any kind?
Not at all.
Full throttle?
Full out.
How far out was that plane?
Between 12 and 14 miles. John, our supervisor, relayed verbatim. Okay, he's 12 miles west. He's moving very fast, eastbound. Okay, guys, where is he now? 11 miles west. And it was just a countdown. 10 miles west. 9 miles west. Somewhere right in this vicinity, in this time frame, our supervisor picked up our line to the White House and started relaying to them the information. We have an unidentified, very fast-moving aircraft inbound toward your vicinity, 8 miles west.
Vice President Cheney was rushed to a special basement bunker.
7 miles west.
White House staff members were told to run away from the building.
You guys, please, all the way to 8th Street, please.
And it went 6, 5, 4. And I had it in my mouth to say 3. And all of a sudden, the plane turned away. In the room, it was almost a sense of relief. This must be a fighter. This must be one of our guys, sent in, scrambled to patrol our Capitol and to protect our president. And we sat back in our chairs and breathed for just a second. In the meantime, all the rest of the planes are still flying and we're taking care of everything else. And the plane turned back. He continued the right-hand turn, made a 360-degree maneuver.
A big loop?
Correct. And we're telling the supervisor he's turning back in. He's turning back eastbound.
Then the turn kept going. And that's when I think I yelled to John. I said, oh my God, John, he's coming back.
We lost radar contact with that aircraft. And we waited, and we waited, and your heart's just beating out of your chest. And then the Washington National controllers came over our speakers in our room and said, Dulles, hold all of our inbound traffic. The Pentagon's been hit. I remember some folks gasping. I think I remember a couple expletives.
Tears?
No. No tears. Not a single tear among us. No one broke down. No one strayed from their duties.
But with the sky still full of planes, no one knew and no one knows to this day if more planes were about to be hijacked.
The order came, get every plane in the sky in the United States. We don't care where he was going. get them on the ground. An operations manager came to each one of us. Are you okay? Do you want to be relieved? And I said, no, let me stay. Let me get this cleaned up. We need to get these guys on the ground.
You weren't too rattled?
Not at that moment. It was a sense of urgency. It was a sense of protectiveness. It's the same protectiveness we work these planes with every day of the year. But daggone it, nobody was going to take any more. Not if we could help it.
According to FAA radar records, almost 5,000 aircraft, the green dots, were safely guided to the ground in under 2 hours, leaving behind a nationwide coverage of blue dots. Those are military jet fighters.
The air traffic controllers achieved the impossible, and it was something that had never been contemplated, something that had never been practiced, and yet they did it with professionalism and skill. I'm very proud of them.
Since then, Danielle O'Brien has gone to the actual scene to see for herself what happened.
I've been down to the Pentagon and stood on the hillside and imagined where, according to what I saw on the radar, that flight would have come. And I think that they came eastbound, and because the sun was in their eyes that morning, and because the White House was beyond a grove of trees, I think they couldn't see it. I think they couldn't see it. It was too fast. They came over that Pentagon or saw it just in front of them. You can't miss the Pentagon. It's so telltale by its shape and its size. And they said, look, there it is, take that, get that. They certainly could have had the White House if they had seen it.
In the days after September 11th, Danielle struggled hard to deal with what had happened, turning to family and then close friends for support.
I called a girlfriend of mine that evening, and I got her answering machine. And I said, you're not going to believe what I've been involved with today. And I said, you know, American 77, I saw him. I saw it all. Call me. And Tuesday evening lapsed and Wednesday lapsed, and I hadn't heard from her, which was very odd. And then Thursday she called, and she sounded different on the phone. She said, did I understand your message right? And I said, yes, it was amazing. And I started just blurting out everything. And she said, Danielle, she said, Bob was at work that day. My husband was at work that day in the Pentagon, and he's missing. Last week I went to his funeral. It's real personal.
This one?
Danielle is now taking some time off to spend with her family. She has yet to tell her two children, Kennedy and Garrett, what their mother actually experienced that day.
Kennedy, do you like this one?
And so how are you doing?
I think like the rest of the nation, I have good days and bad days.
Are there bad dreams or nightmares?
Sure, absolutely. I've sat up straight in bed many nights, reliving it, re-seeing it, rehearing it. The one that comes to mind most, dreaming of the green pool in front of me. That was part of the radar scope. It was a pool of gel, and I reached into the radar scope to stop that flight. But in the dream, I didn't harm the plane. I just held it in my hand. And somehow that stopped everything.
Oh, Brian, would that she could have.
Indeed.
You know, the plane that the brave passengers took down in Pennsylvania, do we know now where that plane was heading?
The theory is that plane was bound for the U.S. Capitol, and that this flight, American 77, was supposed to hit the White House, the terrorist 1-2 punch in Washington.
Just as they had done in New York.
Exactly.
Well,
I didn't know that they had TV for these people when they were supposed to be in the other room. I didn't know.
Question, Russ? Did the lady say it was American 77, and then the manager guy says American 11?
Two different flights. Two different flights. Okay. Now you understand, how did they know if the transponders were off?
traffic total clock.
Now to help other planes quickly land.
Speedbird 117 is landing 260.
We started moving the planes in as quickly as we could. Then I noticed the aircraft. It was an unidentified plane to the southwest of Dulles, moving at a very high rate of speed.
How did they know it was a high rate of speed?
It was 6 weeks later that this interview was taking place. I had 6 weeks to write the script.
Oh, yeah. The transponders, there's more coming.
I had literally a blip and nothing more. I slid over to the controller on my left, Tom Howell, and I asked him, "Do you see an unidentified plane there southwest of Dulles?" And his response was, "Yes." "Oh my gosh, yes. Look how fast he is."
And then I said, "Oh my God, it looks like he's headed to the White House." I started yelling, John, we got a target headed right for the White House."
A representation of the FAA radar scope based on information obtained by 2020 shows the plane headed straight for what is known as P-56.
Okay, this is another one. When you take, you see the projector, it's right here. Okay, if you take and you put a straight edge ruler, and just where it's going this way, it brings it in right about here someplace. Right. So how does the guy know that this is headed straight for the White House? Right. I mean, that's dramatics. That's just melodramatic. You know? So I mean, yeah, okay, it's headed for the Washington area, you know, but this guy says he's headed for the White House. Straight for the White House. Straight for the White House. Straight for the White House. I mean, so P-56 is a prohibited area 56. Yeah.
Being a professional air traffic controller, well, if she sees something like that, doesn't she make the initial attempt to contact that blip instead of, hey, check this out?
Right.
And we're not professionals here.
But you see, they really don't know who it is.
But don't they make an initial contact? Hey, who are you?
They don't know who to call. American Flight 77. Now, if it's this is the government story now. This is the government story.
After the fact.
So, they really don't know who this blip is. I mean, it's just a green blip. Now, let's turn it on, but there's more.
Prohibited Airspace 56, which covers the White House and the Capitol, at a speed of about 500 miles an hour, with no radio contact whatsoever.
500 miles an hour is about 100 and... Now they're using statute miles an hour, okay? We use nautical miles per hour in the airplanes. So you can convert statute miles to nautical miles, and it's about 110 knots over. We call it VMO, which is the vertical speed. Absolutely impossible due to drag, rise, and compressibility and transonic, supersonic flight speeds over the tops of the wing. Right? It can't happen. The wings will come off. The wings will come off. Egypt Air proved that in our shadow tonight.
So 110, not 5 or 10.
Oh, no, 110 knots over the barber pole I told you about. Now, being advised, when the airspeed indicator goes over that red barber pole, the clacker comes out very loud. Now, if you remember that the loved ones heard the so-called cockpit tapes of the people who were deceased on the airplane, and nobody mentioned the clacker. It's just kind of interesting. This is an overspeed warning. It sounds like a machine. Very loud.
Is he on a normal flight approach of any kind?
Not at all.
Full throttle?
Full out.
How far out was that plane?
Between 12 and 14 miles. John, our supervisor, relayed verbatim. Okay, he's 12 miles west. He's moving very fast, eastbound. Okay, guys, where is he now?
Okay. At that speed, he'd be knocking off about 7 to 8 nautical miles per minute. That's what you figured out. Giving them the benefit of the doubt, using their speeds, which we know is impossible because you're below 23,500 feet. There's an airspeed and a Mach limitation on these airplanes. And so below that, They're nowhere near 500 pounds. Absolutely. But it could be a missile. It could be a missile. Because we know that Flight 77 did not hit the Pentagon. Because there was no wreckage from the 757. There were no bodies. There were no nothing. There were no 2 engines. Go.
Can you speak up?
On morethanyouvantedtoknow.com, I have 9/11, and there weren't any airplanes. Well, there were 2 that took off, and they landed in Cleveland.
Okay, I didn't want to get to that. You're moving up. We don't have time to go into that.
Russ.
So,
I got to go with my question.
Yeah.
Is she an ATC or an actress?
All I know is what ABC tells us.
She's an actress.
She's an actress.
She's not an ATC, is she?
No.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Art.
Right, but try to finish this up because I know.
11 miles west. And it was just a countdown. 10 miles west. 9 miles west. Somewhere right in this vicinity, in this time frame, our supervisor picked up our line to the White House and started relaying to them the information. We have an unidentified, very fast-moving aircraft inbound toward your vicinity, 8 miles west.
Vice President Cheney was rushed to a special basement bunker.
7 miles west.
White House staff members were told to run away from the building.
You guys, please, all the way to 8th Street, please.
And it went 6, 5, 4. And I had it in my mouth to say 3. And all of a sudden, the plane turned away. In the room, it was almost a sense of relief. This must be a fighter. This must be one of our guys, sent in, scrambled to patrol our Capitol and to protect our president. And we sat back in our chairs and breathed for just a second.
Now, if it was one of our guys, the fighter, F-15, F-16 fighter, he would have his IFF on. It would be the blue target, and they'd know exactly who it is.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So she's lying through her teeth. Absolutely lying through her teeth. Folks, this is a demonstration. There's a lot more to it, because when the airplane makes the final approach to the Pentagon, the guy flying it is making a right turn. If he's in the left seat, he wouldn't make a right turn. He'd make a left turn, because he's coming around. He's never flown. He's flown Piper Cubs, Cessna 172s allegedly, and he's flying something that's gone 10 times faster than he's ever gone anything in his life. And he would have to be flying this thing like an ace to bring that airplane into a position where he's got a good final approach toward the Pentagon. And now they say that he gets on final approach to the Pentagon. He pushes the throttles forward to go through the Pentagon. They want these airplanes going as fast as they can, so that they say, oh, the airplane hit so hard and fast that it vaporizes. No, there's no evidence of it.
Yeah, that's it. No chance.
But you cannot make these airplanes go fast enough to vaporize jet engines, landing gears, brakes, tires, things like that. It can't be done. So when the airplane finally goes down to the Pentagon, it's traveling at a rate of descent of 4,650 feet per minute. Which how many feet in a statute mile? 5,200 feet. Okay, so this is about 52, 53 miles an hour. Rate of descent. Rate of descent. So here's the problem. When he's going down at this rate of descent, with the shock waves coming off the trailing edge of the wings, and I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, I'm using their airspeeds. When the guy pulled back in the elevator to stop the sink rate, this high sink rate, so he doesn't go into the grass before he hits the Pentagon, nothing would happen. Nothing would happen because the shock waves trailing off the trailing edge of the wings would completely block out the rear horizontal stabilizer of the elevator, and nothing would happen.
We lose control.
The airplane would not be controllable at that speed. Okay? So the whole thing is one great big gigantic lie. The government is guilty of mass murder. These people ought to be arrested, arraigned, put on trial, and if I love to be able to put them under cross-examination, they would be guilty in 10 minutes.
Right on, man.
Anyway, listen, just to think there's any more here, I could just quote it here. I know
breathed for just a second.
Okay, stop. This is the alphanumeric information you get from a transponder, all this writing here. That's the stuff that you get on normal blips with transponders. And when that's gone, it's just a blip. You got to change the configuration of the radar scope to pick up just the basic primary returns. And they say, oh, we lost these airliners. Folks, I didn't know my airliner that I was flying had stealth technology. I mean, really, we got all these fancy stealth fighters, bombers, B-1s, B-2s, you know, the F-35, the F-22, stealth technology. Hey, just use the design we got in airliners. Okay, just see what else is left.
All the rest of the planes are still flying and we're taking care of everything else. And the plane turned back. It continued the right-hand turn, made a 360-degree maneuver. Correct. And we're telling the supervisor he's turning back in. He's turning back eastbound.
And I turned back on. And that's when I think I yelled to John. I said, oh my God, John, he's coming back.
We lost radar contact with the aircraft. And we waited. And we waited. And your heart's just beating out of your chest. And then the Washington National controllers came over our speakers in our room and said, Dulles, hold all of our inbound traffic. The Pentagon's been hit.
Okay. Anyway, I'm out of time, folks. And we want to talk about the World Trade Center. Michael?
She looks like one of
Okay, folks.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Is that good? Anybody want to go to the bathroom? Go.
Yeah, we don't have a call for a cleanup in aisle 1.
Okay. My name's Mike Shoen. I've been involved in this for a while. The proof is my old model of the World Trade Center 1 and 2. Take a box and I put some of the framing in there, and it's over the years it's been destroyed, but and kind of beaten up. But this model here is illustrative of the framing of World Trade Center buildings 1 and 2. This square box being the building. You'll notice that there's a bunch of vertical steel columns here on the outside. So this was a very unusual building. You won't find this in downtown Phoenix or downtown Los Angeles or even downtown New York anymore here. This was what was called an exoskeleton frame. The outer frame was actually stuck outside of the wall. Well, does everybody understand that? Now, you have on any big high-rise building, you have an interior center core frame. So right in the core, and I didn't finish this all off, I just put one row, is a box section here that they call the core columns, the vertical columns. And in these core columns are the elevators, the stairways, all the mechanical stuff, okay? So in this area around sort of the outside is where all the offices are. So they stuck, this is important, they stuck in a normal building, like Building 7, and every single building in downtown Phoenix, every high-rise, you're going to have these vertical columns here, except they're going to be inside the wall. Does everybody understand that? Yeah. So you can go in maybe in your office, and you can have a big column there. Now these columns were 16 inches square, steel, right?
And they at the bottom, they started out about 2 inches thick. And then as they went up, they got smaller. This building, 1 and 2, were constructed like gigantic jigsaw puzzles. Every piece of steel was numbered and identified. So you didn't have to design it, it was already designed, and you put it together. Number A23 goes right under A24. Do you understand that? Okay? So they were all labeled. So it got, because you need less strength the higher you got, these columns got thinner as you went up, and same thing with these big, huge, these were much larger columns here. These were 3 and 4 foot by about a little over 2 foot and 3 foot, the big one. So you got and if you can show Terry those films, show the films. We don't need any sound on them.
Which one?
The 2 YouTube films. You don't have them?
No.
Okay, good. Well, I can improvise. Okay, now let's remember. What do they show us on the TV today about 9/11? They show the airplanes hitting, don't they? They never show you what? The buildings collapsing. They never show that. You remember the buildings collapsing? And remember 1 and 2? Remember 1 and 2, the ones that are, you got to go back and look. On this handout I sent out are references so you can find that. But when they show 1 and 2, it's like, what is it like? What is 1 and 2 like? When 1 and 2 go down, somebody tell me.
A mushroom cloud.
There's cannonading, there's things are being propelled way out. You've got to go back, not just the squibs. You've got to see, look at this picture here. Pass that around. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
See what's being propelled outwards. Pass that around. Okay. You've got to go back and look at some of the films on YouTube are listed in your in this little couple sheets I put out, but it's like the 4th of July. Stuff is being shot out. Now, I calculated yesterday that they have these things here, the exterior steel columns are put together in little pieces. And one of those sections, 10 foot by 33 foot, about 2/3 of the way down weighs, what was it? I think about 12,000 pounds. 12,000 pounds. There's a picture in one of these YouTube videos of that 12,000 pounds being propelled 100 yards. So how do you propel 12,000 pounds 100 yards? Yeah. So you've got to go. Now the starting point in science. This is very important. The starting place in science is observation. All the fancy instruments that are out there are just recording what you and I could observe. It's got a little warmer, it's spun a little quicker. You understand? It's more carefully and accurately recording what we could observe with our eyes. So you want to go back and observe with your eyes the video recordations of these buildings coming down. 1 and 2, tremendous explosion. Building number 7, how did that go down?
Implosion. Yeah, right.
Boom. And there was no plume of explosions, right? Now, why? I can tell you why.
Controlled demolition.
What's that?
Controlled demolition.
Well, yeah. Number 7 looks like every other building controlled demolition. There's no difference. But 1 and 2 are dramatically different. They're shooting up these gigantic columns of debris and propelling steel way out distant. Well, why is that? Well, the people who brought it down had a technological problem. Okay, this is a vertical 16-inch square column on the outside. Okay, let's say this is one right here, right? So if you're going to blow it up, where are you going to place the explosives?
Inside.
It's got to go inside, and it's got to go in such a direction it's going to propel it outward, right? Am I correct?
Yeah.
It's not going to propel it to the side, and you can't have a canceling, one going this way and one going that way, because you can't put your explosives outside for God and all the world to see, right? So they have to go in on the inside to break this stuff up. So what kind of explosive are we going to use then? Are we going to use the normal explosive, which is the regular explosive is called RDX, and that's an explosive, right? And that makes a big noise and it blows stuff. So that is the reason we have all the thermite residue, because thermite can cut these in a millisecond. It takes longer than RDX, but it can cut it. But it cuts it through fire, through as if it were a torch, okay? So it makes a noise, and it does propel, but it propels less, and it makes less of a noise. But thermite, when it's used to cut steel, leaves a residue of melted steel, right? Because you're cutting through melting. Now, if you're cutting through RDX, what do you leave? You leave a fracture. Okay, now does everybody understand the difference between a fracture and a thermal cut? Okay? The fracture, it's going to be uneven, it's going to be broken, but if you burn a candle, you've got a thermal cut. And so now what kind of thermite are you going to use? Okay, you're going to use the best kind, and the best stuff that works the best. And that's what's called nanothermite. And that's the reason I'm talking about this is because people who collected the dust and had it analyzed found the residue of nanothermite. It's called nanothermite in a sol gel. Now this is a sol gel. Pass it around and take it over. Right there. And I've got another one here. Now, this is, of course, it's not thermite. It's not really. It is a sol gel. It's what do you call these things? What are they? Fruit roll-ups. Yeah, fruit roll-ups. And yeah, they're fruit roll-ups. So this is essentially. So now let me tell you what nanothermite is. Pass this around. This is thermite. I have thermite right here for you, which is oxidized. Pass these around. You guys can keep them. But that's not going to cut anything because they're big pieces of the elements, which are aluminum and oxidized irons, okay? And they explode and create a little bit of flame and fire, but they're not powerful. So you know how you get a lot of taste in your mouth from a given piece of food? You cut it in tiny pieces so you have more surface area. That gives you the taste. That's the same way that you get more explosive power from the elements of thermite. You cut them in tiny pieces. That's called milling. Everybody knows what milling is. Okay, that's a mechanical process. That's not good enough for our military. We're not going to have milled thermite. We're going to have nanothermite grown, G-R-O-W-N, grown in a lab, in a test tube. This stuff that has been recovered from the dust of the World Trade Center was grown in the lab. I don't think the guys in the caves in Afghanistan had the ability to do that. They could do that at Sandia, and they could do it at Lawrence Livermore Labs, and there were patents on it. What's that? Well, good. Right? Thank you. So what's happening is that in the rubble and in the dust, investigators have recovered little pieces about this big, as big as an eraser, of sol gel nanothermite burned around the edges. Right? So they recovered a lot of that. What they did recover was a tremendous amount of the residue of the burned or the burned nanothermite. So that is one thing that I wanted to tell you. None of this is conclusive, but I want to give you as much information as I have. And everything fits and points to
the use of thermite here, not only thermite, but the incriminating thermite, which is nanothermite and a solid gel. So, let me see. Now, the next matter I got is the investigation. Remember I said that every single column and the beams were numbered. They fit together like a gigantic puzzle. So it wouldn't have been that hard to go back and do an investigation, a post-accident or post-crime investigation. But we didn't want to do that. We didn't have enough time to do that. But at least what we could have done was, why don't we then let people photograph it and we'll at least make a record? No, I bought every book. They're here, passing around every book that had a photographic record of the wreckage of the World Trade Center. But when you get the book, what you find is the text. And the text says, I went over there to get photos, but they said I couldn't come in. I went over to get photos, but they took my camera. I went over there to get photos, but they threatened me. So these people have photos, but they got them here and there, and they made it happen. Some of them were surreptitious. But what we wanted to do immediately after the accident, this happened, was happening during the same day, September 11th. They were erecting the barriers to keep people from visually seeing the rubble, which was kind of hard to do, but they did it. So now you can take these books, which I did, and look at every photo that you can find, and through your sense of scale, taking a scale from something that's known of the dimension in the photo, you can find out the largest piece of vertical columns, okay, that remain in this pile of rubble, right? So this thing was like 1,360 foot tall, right? So, and it has 47 of these columns in the center. So what's the longest piece that remains? From my crude investigation, I figured it was about 100 feet, so I gave it 120. So when you take 47 columns and you multiply how many 120-foot sections there are in there, because that's the biggest one that's in this pile of rubble, or maybe a lot more, you've got, I think it's just under 500 separate pieces, right? So what that means is that in the 10 seconds it took for this building to fall down, we created just under 500 separate pieces, cuts, of these gigantic steel columns, right? And these things. I didn't measure this. That's rather difficult and improbable that it's going to fall down like that. Now I have another model here. This is pretty simple, and it's okay for you to laugh at. And I'm going to illustrate it. If you take, you know, the first theory they had that the government gave us was, well, the plane cut into the top here, cut the top quarter off, and that fell on the rest of the building and destroyed it, right? Right? Yeah. Now, okay, let's try it here. We got the top quarter, and it didn't destroy it. Okay, now, that's sort of pretty crude, isn't it? But let's say that I had a 100-pound model here, right? Or a 75-pound model, I had a 25-pound piece of it. I dropped it. Would it destroy it? You don't think so? If I took the roof off the car and dropped it on the car, would it destroy it? If I took the top half of the car and dropped it on, it might dent it, right? So we got some sort of, you know, propaganda BS, sort of a line here. Now, so the now when you get all these pieces, the 500 pieces for each one of World Trade Center 1 and World Trade Center 2, then you can question and say, now okay, I know I'm not supposed to take pictures, but can I find a way to look at the cut? Was it a fracture? Which it would have been if it was coming down because something was dropped on it. Or was it a cut that was a cut with thermite. It was cut with like a welding torch or a oxyacetylene torch. And so, people, so they got rid of all this stuff as soon as they could, but they didn't get rid of all of it. And some of them took pieces as prizes, and other people stumbled across it and photographed it. And you'll find there's all sorts of cuts that were done with heat and show melting. And there are cuts that are done with what's called sulfidization. And sulfidization is, and you find residue of sulfur there. That's a different type of thermite. It's called thermate that cuts at a lower temperature. So we've got that bad evidence. But I guess the biggest problem there is that we can't investigate, we can't even take pictures. Nobody can. So that's called guilty conduct or destruction of evidence.
Omission.
What's that?
Omission.
Yeah, the evidence is gone. And thermite was really good because it makes less of a noise and pushes it further out. It propels it not as far. Another piece of evidence that people don't talk about very much, but when you look at the rubble there and you listen to the interviews of the people who were doing the cleanup, what they say is that everything was blown to little bits. And they had the same problem with the bodies. The medical people and the firefighters who were trying to recover people couldn't get an arm. They might find a hand, but they'd find little chunks of flesh. So how does a compression collapse blow everything up into little bitty pieces, including the telephones? Or one of the workers there, he says, I couldn't find it. The biggest thing I found was the part of the front of the telephone about that big. So everything's blown to smithereens.
Vaporized.
What's that?
Vaporized.
Yeah. Now, when I did what I came to call deep fraud litigation for 17 years. It wasn't much fun. And what deep fraud is, you know, if you rob a convenience store, you put on a ski mask, right? But what if you're going to take away trillions of dollars? You get attorneys and CPAs and generals and senators and studies, right? You have a lot of bullshit. Okay? Now, so that's what deep fraud is, backed up. It's very deep and it's hard to get at. So let me give you a warning here. So when you're investigating something like this, you can spend your whole life, 12 hours a day, and be kind of befuddled at the end of your life doing it. It's hard to do. So you want to pick your investigation area very carefully. What do I know about what is a succinct area that I can begin to understand and get real evidence on? Does everybody understand that? Yeah. Same thing happened with the John Kennedy murder. It took a long time because there was so much unknown evidence yet, and you had to piece by piece get told. What you do in deep fraud is you limit your area of inquiry to some area you think is going to have evidence and you have some understanding of, and you can come to a conclusion of, and then you have to proceed from certainty. You find one thing that's certain, like in the John Kennedy deal. You've got the guy who ran the operating room. He said there was a grapefruit-sized hole in the back of his head with the brain matter extruding out. Well, that means that's an exit wound. And everybody, you had 11 people who were in there, they all agreed. You know, big hole in the back of his head and his stuff was coming out the back, so we know that. The same thing with the World Trade Center in 9/11. So you want to limit your area. Another thing is first I forgot to do something. I want to thank everyone for being here. Not just the guests that I invited, but particularly the other people who I didn't invite. I want to tell you something. You're unusual. You're unusual because you give a dog. Most people out there you know, they're concerned. Most people are out there, they do not care, okay? It's too much work, it's too disconcerting, it's too much trouble. So I want to thank you, and thank you for paying attention, because you're the people who are going to be going out and making a difference if a difference can be made. Now, people like myself and yourself who have an analysis, notwithstanding it's rational, of something the government doesn't want us to know about, we are called conspiracy theorists and discredited. So one of the ways that happens, that is facilitated, is through the issuance of disinformation. So somebody goes on YouTube and they say, here's how John Kennedy was killed. The driver turned around and shot him with a pistol. That's on YouTube.
That's right.
So that makes us all look stupid. Okay? So if you're researching any of this, watch out for that. You watch out for the guys who write the bogus books, because we know from the church committee investigation that the media is swamped with guys that are on the payroll of our so-called intelligence organization.
You mean Frank Church?
What?
You mean the Frank Church investigation?
Frank Church, yeah. And another thing I'd like to say about the people that are here, which is very important. You need spiritual power. We need spiritual power. Here's the reason. Because when you get into understanding these things, you say, damn, these are really awful people. This is really ugly. And murdering 3,000 people and blaming it on some innocent people and resultant wars. It's really ugly. It's easier to sit at home and watch the Food Channel and eat. Okay? So you have to have some spiritual power, and I'm not trying to dictate that, but you've got to have some sort of a force within you that can handle the living with this kind of bad stuff.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Now I've been involved with a large organization in this area, working on this stuff, and I think finally, and one of the issues we've had is, should we try and compete with mainstream media? You can't do it. Mainstream media is so full of propaganda that it'll crush you and make you look stupid.
It's the criminally complicit media, not the mainstream. Criminally complicit media.
That's okay, criminally complicit media. But what is happening now is, over time, the scientific analysis wins out. Okay, that's what the University of Alaska study of the collapse of World Trade Center Building 7 is all about. That's what 89/11 Truth has been involved in. So they were doing that. I've got a 3-hour and 4-minute video on YouTube called "People Are Stupid." And it's on this sheet here. "People Are Stupid: A History of the National Security State." And it goes through various acts by the national security state, that is the warfare state, and it talks, and many of them are no longer represented by the government. It's what the first word, it's admitted, oh, we lied, okay? So over time, as the decades go by, over time, Robert McNamara writes his memoirs, and he says, dude, Gulf of Tonkin, we lied. And then McNamara says, dude, it was only 3 million Vietnamese, Laotians, and Cambodians who died because we lied about the Gulf of Tonkin. You get General, I think it was, I can't remember, Rickover, which one it was. He went down, remember the Maine, we got to go to Cuba and beat the crap out of them. Okay, because they blew up our ship in the harbor, the Maine. Well, the Rickover sends the divers down and they say, no explosion came from inside.
Yeah.
Okay, another one, remember the World War I. We got to go get the Germans, and the reason is the Lusitania. Here our passenger ship was going over, and confounded, darn it, the German submarine sunk it. Well, then the British divers go down about 10 years ago, and they say it's all full of contraband of artillery ammunition, and the Germans took out an ad in the New York Times saying don't go on the Lusitania. It's got contraband goods.
And is a legitimate target.
So the legitimate target. So what I'm saying is that over time, the government stops defending itself and science wins out. Blah, blah, blah. So, and of course, Russ mentioned December 7th, 1941, which I won't talk about, which is a favorite subject of mine. So we can place our hope in the scientific analysis and time. It's going to be frustrating, and we're going to lose to confront the United States media. It is what media?
Firmly complicit media.
Yeah, they're a bunch of liars.
No, it can't be true.
Now I want to introduce Adolf Hitler because he's an expert. He's an expert in controlling the little people. Okay, and your quote is on there at the bottom of the first page. In the big lie, there is always a certain force of credibility. Blah, blah, blah. He says, in the primitive, this is talking about the little people, in the primitive simplicity of their minds, they more readily fall victim to the big lie than the small lie.
Here.
Yeah, okay. It would never come into their minds to fabricate colossal untruths, and they would not believe that others would have the impudence to discern the truth so infamously. Now listen to this. This is what happens when we tell our neighbor or the guy who used to work with about 9/11. He listens to the proof, right? The proof. He listens, and then he's a lot of bullshit. They would never do that. Here's what Hitler says: even though the facts which prove this to be so may be brought clearly to their minds, they will still doubt and waver, and will continue to think that there may be some other explanation, right? That is human nature. So that's what we're dealing with. And I deal with that a lot in my YouTube 3-hour and 4-minute video. I'm dealing with propaganda and mind control, which is what I've been working on the last 8 years after I got frustrated with this stuff with 9/11. Another thing, too, is people don't want to bear the spiritual burden. I voted for George W. Bush the first time. This guy did, the moron, right? I voted. Okay, people don't want to bear the spiritual burden of admitting such misconduct has taken place on their watch, and due to their negligence or willful ignorance. Willful ignorance. That's what everybody's doing. Does anybody have any problem with that? I mean, can everybody see that? And I'm trying to say what's actually happening. And then I want to tell old Herman Goering, they got him and they debriefed him along with a lot of other German generals after the war. And they debriefed Goering pretty carefully. And Goering kept saying, oh Christ, you can lead any country into war, it's easy. You just throw a line of BS at him. So the interrogator says, dude, what about democracy? That's where the people have a voice in democracy. The people, the government is the will of the people. Goering says, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. Tell them they're being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism. Okay, so
that's what Lyndon Baines Johnson, turns out he lied about the Gulf Tonkin. We were never fired on the Gulf Tonkin. It was a big ass lie. Americans got his money.
Thank you.
It works.
And 3 million Asians died, but who cares because they're some humans, right? They're not quite as human as I am. Anyway, so now I put in here at number 15 on the top of the second page, propaganda and mind control experts are all over YouTube. And I've got some listing of some of them on the first page. But that's why I was really interested, because when I first found out about 9/11 and figured out what was going down, I went right to some attorneys I had worked with in tough situations. So we had worked side by side and fought it out together, right? In difficult situations, I said, dude, this is what's going on, and they looked at me like I was crazy.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah, yes.
I actually went to 9/11, the site, about a few weeks after it happened, and I used to be a firefighter in the Air Force, and the smell was overwhelming. Me and my buddy couldn't be there for more than 20, 30 minutes. It was just acrid, overwhelming smell. That's probably some of the explosives you're talking about. You can't describe the smell.
Oh.
It was
People are still dying today from breathing that stuff.
Yeah.
Firefighters.
Yeah, that's right.
More people have died from breathing that dust than inside the tower.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
You mentioned spiritual warfare, it's a battle for the mind, and the last 35 years, I think, neuro-linguistic programming, Obama used it very effectively. It's how the human mind processes thoughts and stuff like that. It's part of this propaganda thing that Hitler, Goring, whoever these dudes were back in World War II.
I've got 4 books on the first page that identify books that are sort of the seminal or leading books in propaganda and mind control.
Yeah, we're vulnerable.
Yeah, we're not only in this subject, but in food, in pharmaceuticals.
Chemtrails.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Finance. You pursue this stuff, and in my view, 3 elements I'd like to suggest. I know 3 people, one's in hiding right now, by the way, from the deep state. He's a Jewish fellow, nice fellow, has some affiliation with the Mossad. He said to me, the day that happened, the Mossad had put up cameras along the Hudson River, take pictures of the dark thing, so they could document it for their own use. That's one. 2, I had a friend, unfortunately her name's Christine Adams, she died of cancer about 2 years ago, but nothing having to do with it. But she'd been in the railroad business all her life, and she had departed from working for the railroad to become a private contractor with salvage, scrap, and she and about a dozen other people in the country would have a workstation at home, and they would keep track of the sidings where all the cars were to bid the cars to go get the scrap and move it around. She told me within a year or so after this thing happened, 9/11, that they were blocked out for bidding. The scrap contracts had already been made in advance, 6 months in advance. 6 months in advance. And they were non-competitive. They were offshore. And the fleet of ships was already stacked up outside of New York Harbor waiting to come in and pick the stuff up. And, going one more step, she says, because they're in the salvage business. Oh, thank you. She said, all the pieces were cut neatly to fit on the lowboys to get to the trains to get to the ships, to get in the ships.
Right.
About 35 feet or something. The whole thing. And so it was easy to move. So they easy to move. That's 2 or 3 elements. I told a friend of mine who I knew that she was in the insurance business out here. She had an offer from a big company to go work, and I knew she worked in one of the Twin Towers. And I called her cell phone number the morning I saw her. I said, "Are you all right?" She said, "Yeah, I'm across the river in New Jersey. They moved our offices over across the river about 6 months ago. There were only about 3,000 people in the building when it went down, but these are buildings that normally populate about 100,000 people as you give a workday. They had basically emptied the buildings out."
Thank you. There's a lot that no one can cover in an hour, but
Thank you.
I'm trying to. Yeah, thank you. I'm trying to sort of paint an outline and help you with little bits and pieces. At the second page here, many of you already know a lot or most of this stuff here, and I sort of listed it in order that it came to me of websites, my YouTube, an old website I've got, various YouTubes, various people who are witnesses, some books on propaganda and mind control, you know, Justin Keogh is a very smart guy in Tucson. I wanted to mention, if you ever wanted a superbly intelligent, brilliant guy to speak here on 9/11, Justin Keogh is. And I put some of the facts, the dimensional facts about the World Trade Center. What I go into in my YouTube video is the motivation for all this. We just don't have evil geniuses hanging around. This is human nature. This is human nature wants to get bigger and stronger and more powerful. And so the national security state, the warfare state, does it by creating the demand for more wars. And that's what they did with this thing. I would like to also talk about the revenge of the victims of aggressive war. I want just a heads up for everybody. Heads up. We hear about the Taliban or wherever they are out there putting an Anglo guy in a cage and lighting him on fire, right? And here, yes, sir?
In your studies, did you ever come across where the television stations were broadcasting this thing live, and the nose of the airplane actually came out the other side?
Yeah,
Right.
I saw that. Well, let me tell you, though, about what we are doing to our society. It's very important. I have a very close friend who's dead now, who's skipped the details, but he was in the killing, in the World War, major killing for a long time. His unit twice, well, in the space of 2 years, they had 100% casualty. In any event, what happens, the Germans conducted an aggressive war against Russia. No question. And they hurt the Russians bad. What do you think the Russians did to the Germans who stayed behind? It was pretty hard, dude. And so I've got a number of accounts by survivors of that who were witnesses to what the Russians did to the Germans. Well, so we created a false pretense for a war against Islam, a war against anybody in the Middle East that has natural resources. Then we traced out their culture. We traced their religion. We kill them with drones and whatever else we want to. Now, what do you think they're going to do to us when they get a chance? That's called the revenge of the victims of aggressive war. So that's the payback. So if we want our kids to have that payback and our grandkids to have that payback, then let's just go ahead. Yes, sir.
I got one question. You talked about the man that's been a long time. Are you familiar with records today and where they did an analysis and there were radioactive components that can only be created by the explosion of a nuclear weapon? And he claims that these are B-51 small micro nukes that were used to blow it. That's what blew it out.
Yeah.
That's why Tar is 3 blocks away.
Right. This gentleman brought up the Judy Wood, Dr. Judy Wood analysis. And
no, this is Gordon Duck.
Now, there's a different one, but it's a different analysis. But I haven't heard of that one. But my response to those things is investigate and analyze those things you have hope of proving. We can have hope of proving the buildings were knocked down through explosive demolition.
Well, that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
They're using
yes.
many nukes. They create very low signature. So these dust particles are found with cesium-137 and tritium. And those are only being produced through a thermonuclear event.
Well, yes, sir.
Dr. Judy Wood's directed energy. Can you speak up, sir, please? Dr. Judy Wood's directed energy ain't been what justified it.
Right. Directed energy weapons.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Also, I want to say, you said we did all this war overseas. No, we did, our government and or the deep state did.
Yes.
Right. But we are responsible. And we should have shut it down long ago. I knew he was not
guy on video, he's desperate, isn't he? He's pleading. And you said he was not in control. And you are correct, we didn't do it, I presume. Well, I did it because I was sucking my thumb and didn't care on 2011, 2001. So I was responsible. Yes.
Mike, first of all, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Just recently, last month, in one of the emails that I'm getting from the 9/11 Truth Group, evidently, I think it's either in New York or Washington, D.C., finally some group of brainiac attorneys have gotten the information to the point where it looks like there may be a grand jury appointed to investigate some of the details. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yes.
Well, I'm a member of that group. I was one of the first members, and, well, wait a minute, but I've done nothing with it other than communicate some with Jane Clark, who's sort of the head of it, and she's very, very competent. And the attorneys that are involved in there have done a lot of work, and they have sued the Attorney General of the state of New York and gotten a judgment saying the Attorney General of the state of New York is now required to convene a grand jury. And in my experience, I'm sorry to say that, yeah, that's going to happen, and either the judge is going to be paid off, is going to be threatened, or be killed. In other words, that is not going to be a success. We're back, with all due respect, we're back to, that's my experience in deep fraud in the litigation system that involves gigantic amounts of money. So now we're back to this question of, can we get the scientific evidence? Can we corral it, preserve it, and sooner or later people come out and rat them out? Now I want to talk briefly about ratting out other people. In the John Kennedy deal in the last 10, 12 years, boy, they've been coming out of the woodwork, ratting out, and saying, here's what really happened, because the people that originally threatened him are dead, and they're gone, and nobody really cares anymore. So you've got Judith Very Baker, Oswald's girlfriend. You know, you've got a zillion people who come out, they're 65, their career's over, they've got Social Security, their kids have jobs, then they come out and say, here's what happened. And that'll happen, but as far as our, I can't tell you guys why you should be the way you are, or why I should be the way I am, but, that's the way I am. Yes.
Robert Kennedy Jr. now does not believe that his father was assassinated by this lone nut.
Of course not.
The evidence is just too strong on it. And it would seem to me that just the fact that all the evidence in that case has been destroyed by mistake by the LAPD. One could call that spoliation of evidence. And I would think that if we had any kind of an honest judiciary, that should be set aside. That whole conviction should be set aside. There's spoliation of evidence, and that's very, very critical. Anyone can take it for the worst, or anyone can take it for the best, whichever side they're on.
Yeah, I was working with a guy who was an attorney who was taking the last step to do that. He went to, I think, the Organization of American States, to the treaty they had, and petitioned them to review it, because all the review is gone in the United States. But this is not all bad, because if we understand what's going on, okay, and how bad this can become, you can protect yourself and your family at the minimum, because you know what's coming down. You don't have to be caught unawares. You can shut up at the appropriate time and say the right thing that people want to hear at the appropriate time. So we can at least protect ourselves. Another thing we can do is you can save some time every day by ignoring mainstream media. You don't have to look at it. It's just propaganda and poppycock and diversionary trivia anyway. So, yes, Les.
I just want to say one other thing about, from our mutual friend, Brian, who got murdered. I started looking, even before then, that when I look at the result that they're trying to tell us, 9/11, Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King, and I asked myself, if I were of that mindset and wanted to perpetrate that, what would I do differently? And when I started looking at it that way, all of a sudden, everything starts making perfect sense the way they did it and the way they're covering it up. If you think like a tyrant, you don't have to act like a tyrant or be a tyrant. You understand the mindset. And it doesn't matter whether it's from this side or from this side of the political aisle. You understand the mindset. And then I was able to really just look at what you're looking at, the scientific, just the facts, man, just the facts.
Yeah, see, you can be wary enough that you don't have to drink the Kool-Aid the next time they tell you something. You can be skeptical. Anyway,
I automatically believe they're lying. It's automatic for me. I'm thinking liar, and then
Might as well assume that it could easily be right.
This is a mass murder.
Yeah.
Is there a statute of limitations on
no, there's no statute of limitations. It's a crime against humanity. It's capital murder, and it's treason. And anybody who gets a presidential Medal of Freedom, I say, is usually guilty of all three.
Right.
Yes.
Including Bill Cosby.
Two thoughts. First of all, they're all frauds. Statute of frauds is very clear in American law.
I agree.
That the purpose of a fraud is the hiding of the thing. Therefore, if it's still relevant 100 years later, for whatever reason, the statute of limitations only starts, even on lesser crimes, on the constructive discovery, which could be any number of years later. That's one element. The other thing I would say is they hide. Tony Giuliani didn't know. Yes. And now he advises the president.
The problem here is that if you get into the nitty-gritty, how many, then you can get a good, let's say you get a good man in there, and they're going to say, dude, we kind of have some disagreement here with you doing A, B, and C, and we're worried that your grandkids are going to get cancer. Right? So what do? It's all over. Yes.
With that in mind, Mike, can you tell a brief story about how when Jimmy Carter first became president, he had all these great ideas he wanted to implement, and the first or second day in office, they took him to some room in the bottom of the White House, and he had a little chat with some of the people who really control what's going on, and he left in tears, knowing that he really wasn't in control.
Well, you told the story. There's another story about Jimmy Carter. He was denied the second presidency because of the October surprise, which was George H.W. engineering and flying over a bunch of weapons to the guy we hated a lot, the Ayatollah Khomeini, who was our enemy. And and the Ayatollah waited until after the election to release the captives from the American embassy. So, so Jimmy Carter, when interviewed about that, he said, I have never read any books on that, and I'm not going to read any, and I'm not going to discuss it. What he's saying is that there's a lot of bad crap going on, I know, and I don't want to know the details. Yeah, they screwed me, but I'm not going to get into it. So I don't know really what to tell you other than thanks for caring, thanks for being here, and we may be weary, but it doesn't mean I'm wrong, or that it's not very important.
Speak up, please.
She wants to know if anyone from the government or any of the higher corporations have threatened you or your family.
Well, I was very involved from 02 through 10, and then I had a reason to bail, totally, pull a ripcord, jump out. And then whatever I've done since then has been indirectly as I could. So I will never, talking like this is okay, but so the answer there is if that happened, it wouldn't be smart for me to say, and I'm not going to do it again. That's another thing. If you have ever been in competition with an infinitely larger force, you kiss A, and you do it nice, and you do it right away. And I tell, I got a buddy who's in prison right now who did, everybody knows who it is, he didn't do it. But, thank you, yes, sir.
I'm just going to say, the exposing of this crap is the Second American Revolution. Yes. Us telling people we're not comfortable telling about it, and telling not only what is described today, but why and who. That is imperative if we ever want to live in America. Otherwise, the children and grandchildren are going to end up in nothing but blowback.
When I post this material on the website, I'll put the articles and some other of the videos too, so people can go to the website and look at some of the things we didn't have time for.
Now, I agree with you, sir.
Yeah.
But my solution is different. Because I figure I'm going to die down southeast Arizona. I'm too old. But my kids and grandkids, they all have dual citizenship. So I'm a coward or a chicken. I was happy and those people got dual citizenship. I don't have it. But I bet you most people here don't have dual citizenship. So the people that remain, which includes me, are screwed unless...
Well, I'm saying taking the position that I can talk about something I'm not allowed to talk about to people that I may offend. And when I say offend, not offend them by my mannerisms, but offend with the actual subject matter, which this is very offensive to a lot of people.
Here.
If you get on two websites, it'll talk about who did this, why they did it. That's unz.com, that's unz.com, and another one, bolin.com, BOLLYN.com. They explain exactly who did this and why. It was them and also this character here. Both groups promote willful ignorance. We want this to be willfully ignorant about what the heck they're doing in our country. It's time to say no. If we let the dads, because I get death threats, to be honest, because I talk about the free opening. I handed out flyers last year, got arrested for it, because they dropped the charges. And I've gotten death threats from somebody calls themselves the IDF. They drive up in the cars, mock the paper out on this subject, and they just make threats. That group and this group, this phony organized group here, which is he's not the real one. These are the two that want us to be willful ignorant and not talk about it. If we talk about it, that is the Second American Revolution. It's a peaceful one. Talk about it. Keith, what are those two websites you just mentioned? Unz.com, unz.com.
UNZ?
unz.com. Outstanding. And bolin.com.
What was the second one?
BOLLYN.com.
I'll put the links on the website.
Thank you, Gary.
Well, Keith, right?
Yes.
Yeah, my respect from me to you.
Same here. Thank you. We're all doing it together. Yeah. We can win.
Okay, folks. We've got.
Everybody leave.
Got the microphone.
Peter.
Hey, Russ.
Yes, dear.
When you talk about
Hi.
All right, you guys. Did we have a good one this morning? Or did... All right, that's what we'll do. Good old breakfast book. Okay, we have it going. Pull the books. The books are over on the side here. Everybody should have a ticket. First chance at the book. First chance at the book. 2908. 2908.
I gave it to your name.
I don't hear anybody. 2908. 2914. 2914.
Where's everybody?
Gotta be here to win.
2900.
Oh, come on.
You'll never say mine.
2898. 2898.
Going once, going twice.
We'll get 3 out here, one way or another. $2,889. Hey, there you go. We got one. We got one. How about 2896? There you go. Those books over there. One more.
Yes.
We're making progress. 2909. 2909. There you go. All right. See you guys a month from now. First Saturday in February.
All right, Frank.
Happy New Year. Have a good one.